seminar for January. Thanks, Mary, for doing that. So appreciate everybody taking the time this afternoon to join us for the next hour as we do some updates with things that we've been working on, along with some updates from Kansas Department of Commerce and some things that they have been working on. And so I know that Paul is joining the meeting now, so he may need to take a minute to get settled. But right now, everybody's mic has been muted. However, the chat box is open. So I would encourage you that if you have comments or questions, that you put those in the chat box. Leslie, who is a member of the board, is going to be monitoring that chat box and making sure that we don't miss anything and that we address those as they come along. We are going to be taking questions throughout the presentation, so please be sure to enter things there, and we can unmute you if needed. And as Mary noted earlier, today's session is being recorded so that we'll be able to provide that at a later time. And I'm not able to see if Paul actually is on. So Craig, how about if I introduce you?
Paul's on, actually.
Okay, so Paul Hughes joined Department of Commerce just within the last 6 or 7 months. He came to us from Arizona, and as the deputy secretary, we thought it was important for all of you to have a chance to say hello and to get to know him. And there I see you now, Paul. I just had to scroll through a little bit. He had a busy morning earlier today, but was able to join us to say hello and introduce himself. So Paul, thanks for being here.
Thanks for including me. I really appreciate it. Had a chance to meet a good number of the folks on this this Zoom call today, but not everybody. It's a big state and there's a lot going on. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. As you mentioned, I did come here from the state of Arizona. I was in economic development there in a similar role to what I'm doing today. And it gives me kind of a different perspective on how things are done here in Kansas, and I'm looking forward to contribute anywhere I can. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today, and doing a lot more listening than talking. So I'll end here.
Great, thanks, Paul. Would you mind in the chat putting the best way for people to contact you, if you prefer cell phone or email or whatever is the best way for folks to reach out to you? I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll do that now.
Great, thank you, sir. We appreciate having you here and look forward to the leadership that you bring us in the coming years. So thank you for that. So Craig Van Wy, who many of us know from Southeast Kansas for all the years that he provided services as our regional business rep, about 15 years or so, about a year or so ago, took a promotion and is now the leader for the state reps throughout the in-state reps for the entire state. So Craig, you were going to give a little bit of an overview of some things that you've got going on, and wanted to be sure everybody had a chance to meet you, know that you have a couple of vacancies in those positions that are currently being filled. So thought you might want to be able to cover that in your overview.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Can you see my slideshow?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So yeah, Janet, Mary, and everyone at KDA, thanks again for the opportunity to talk to you. I wanted to take a few minutes to kind of give you an update on some things with our in-state team, to kind of recap 2021 and talk about some objectives for 2022. So we'll get started. First of all, as far as a recap on 2021, you know, we've talked a lot about capital investment, number of new projects, new jobs, how we've had really an extraordinary year thanks to all of our EcoDevo partners around the state. But there were a few interesting metrics that I wanted to point out. I thought that were really kind of cool and encouraging. The first one is one of the things we track are the successes across the state. You know, which counties had successful EcoDevo projects that our agency was involved with or partnered with you at the local level on. And we found that 64, this is between recruitment and in-state combined, 64 of the 105 counties had successful projects. So that's about 61%. I've been with the agency here now about 18 years, and I don't recall us ever surpassing the 50% milestone. So, you know, we're at 61% of the state with successful projects. I would love to see by the end of the year if we could push that to more like 2/3 of the state, keep that momentum going. Was really a pretty cool metric that I saw where all the activity is not just in the metro counties. It's east to west, north to south, all parts of the state. We're seeing quite a bit of activity. Another thing too was our team of 8 of us, actually 6 of us right now, but I'll get to that pretty soon. But we've been out working with our partners, making business visits. And last year, our team made a record number of business visits, 913 visits with businesses. Now that's either in person or through a virtual meeting where we can share documents and try to make best use of that technology. So I thought that was a pretty impressive number, 913 business visits. And as a result, we're seeing a lot of activity and a lot of successful projects. And another one too that may not be a surprise, but it still is a nice trend for our projects. And this is for in-state and recruitment combined. A little over $65,000 average wage for our project-related jobs, compared to a little over $55,000 in 2020. So that over a $10,000 difference, I think we can attribute that to probably partially the tight labor market out there. Companies are having to pay a higher entry-level wage, and several companies that we've visited with, our team, have seen that companies have actually implemented pay raises to their existing workforce in order to try to retain them. So those were 3 metrics I thought spoke pretty well of the year that we had. Finally, on capital investment, you can see here the progression. We had a record-setting year, as many of you know, last year, $2.5 billion, and we had set a goal of $3 billion this year, and we actually had surpassed the $3 billion mark. I want to say sometime in October, maybe, but we finished the year at about 3.8. And something I just found out interesting, I had Richard Martinez, our HPIP program manager, sent to me, is I don't know about you guys, but I've seen an incredible amount of participation in HPIP, especially because of some of the changes, the decoupling of HPIP from KIT and KER, and also now the ability to sell or transfer tax credits that I've seen. We've seen a large number of capital intensive projects that are utilizing HPIP. And so I asked Richard for a little bit of information. And actually, as I had thought, we had a little over a 10% increase in HPIP certifications in 2021 over 2020. And during the second half of the year, which then reflected the 2 changes, the decoupling and the ability to sell or transfer credits, actually the increase was a 33% increase over the second half of last year. So significant participation, HPIP, and just a lot of interest in it because of the lucrative benefits that HPIP can provide, and many of you are aware of. So what's in store for 2022? There are some things that we have on our radar and some objectives. First and foremost, let's continue this collaboration we have with our local partners and build on that and kind of ride this momentum into this year. Also, our team is there's some value-added services that we currently provide and are looking to increase awareness and participation in. Many of you are aware of Tim Zimmerman's work in drafting or developing cost-benefit analysis for your tax abatement and IRB projects. So appreciate Tim's work on that end. And also, too, many of you are aware of our Business Retention Expansion Survey program, KBREEZE. I spoke about it last week during the Grassroots Economic Development webinar, and it's a program that we are hoping to push even more in 2022. It's basically a business visitation program to try to gauge the opinions of your local businesses on the likes and dislikes of doing business in your community. If you have a program or survey instrument you like to use, that's fine. Or if you would like to look at ours and beg, borrow, and steal off of our survey document, that's certainly fine too. We also have the ability to, if you choose, to run reports showing kind of the final results, if you will. So that's a program that just contact your local in-state regional project manager for more information, and we can we can visit about that and see about maybe a K-Breeze program later this year. With Marla Canfield's work, we're continuing to grow the Certified Sites program. We've had a lot of interest in that. Appreciate what KEDA has done in the past with it and their continuing support of this. So we've seen some real strides with the Certified Sites program. And then on to the vacancies in our in-state team. So you folks in the Northeast region, that 16 county region, and also in the 4-county East Central KC Metro region, know that you've been without a person for a few months, 2 or 3 months. And in the meantime, you can continue to contact me with any questions, projects. I mean, I will serve you as best as I can and make sure that there's no lapse in service. But I'll let you know as kind of an update. We have been conducting interviews for those 2 positions, and we're actually conducting some more interviews tomorrow and Friday. And depending on how those go, we may have some people in place or some candidates to maybe make a move in filling those positions next week and the week after. So I'll keep you updated on that. And certainly once we get those people in place, I will be happy to take them around their respective regions and get a chance to sit down and introduce them to our EcoDevo partners and talk about, some of the expectations and the way we can collaborate and partner together. So it's kind of an update on our vacancies. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was our To the Stars Celebrating Kansas Businesses program. We gave it a try, or actually had, we're focused on trying to have these 7 regional luncheons last October, but just didn't feel like it was safe given, the participation in each of those. They're going to run, over a period of like 2 or 3 weeks. We just felt it might be best if we just kind of paused a bit and then came up with a new plan for conducting those luncheons. First of all, though, I want to thank everybody again, many of you on this call, for nominating businesses. We had a record number of nominations, 176 nominations statewide, and that shattered our previous record. I don't have an exact number, but I've been involved with this program for years, and I don't recall ever seeing more than like 120, maybe 125 nominations. So we shattered that record, and that's a great reflection on the Kansas businesses across the state and the value that they hold with you at the local level. We also, at the Lieutenant Governor's request, created 3 new awards. We have the Under 30 Entrepreneur Business Person Award, where we really want to focus on those folks that are under 30, that are entrepreneurs and key decision makers with their businesses. We have a new Innovation Award, reflecting on the innovations taking place among companies around the state, and the Welcome Back Award, where we honor those people that have were natives of Kansas, left with what they thought were greener pastures, but then they came back home and are really making an impact in their communities. So those are 3 new awards. We had a terrific response in terms of nominations for those awards, and real excited about honoring those people at the regional level and then ultimately the state level too. So as I mentioned, reinstating the 7 regional awards luncheons in April, culminating in a statewide awards banquet. Some of you old folks like me probably remember the regional luncheons that we had back in the day. I think we had them up until, I want to say, maybe 2007, 2008. But Lieutenant Governor thought it was important to have those again and show our appreciation to those businesses, there in their region, their own backyard. So stay tuned for dates and locations. We're trying to nail down our sites for the 7 luncheons. And so we hope to get that information out soon. In the meantime, if you have any questions on anything I explained, or you want to talk offline about something, here's my contact information. And I'm always happy to talk to you. And again, always value the support and the partnership we get at the local level, because, economic development's a team game and it takes all parties involved. And I think we have a strong collaboration.
Thanks for that, Craig. And you're certainly a big part of that collaboration, and appreciated all the work that you've done in our region since you joined Commerce and now on your statewide position. Cindy Wallace was wondering about the Southwest Kansas position. Do you have an update on it?
Well, okay, so yeah, Jonathan Clayton, as you know, is the Director of Economic Recovery for our agency. He is still kind of quasi assisting with the Southwest region, but I'll give you an update. I did get last week, and I've already circulated the paperwork. I did get permission to post that position. So Cindy, I hope to have that position posted soon, and we can kind of make some progress on that end.
And then I have a question, and it might be a bigger picture on that cost benefit analysis. As I've talked to a couple of folks, has the state done any tweaking of the formula that's used for the cost benefit analysis to account for workers that are remote when they're doing the counts within those formulas?
You know, I'm not sure, to be honest. That's something I'd have to check with Tim Zimmerman. And I can tell you too that we are investigating maybe a more modern and maybe a better CBA software program. The one we use right now, I think meets our needs, but I don't think it really. I just think we have more opportunity and can provide a better product if we look into some new software programs for the cost benefit analysis. But to answer your question, I'm not sure. That's something we can certainly, I can certainly research, and we can get an answer to you.
That sounds great. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate your information. So at this point, we're going to move to Trent. Trent, like Craig, isn't a stranger. He was one of us. He spent 7 years in Manhattan, big K-State fan, worked for the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce before then transferring over to the state as their chief strategy officer. So I think he has some information that he wants to share and is going to be sharing his screen as well.
Okay, can you see that?
Yep. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Trent, for joining us today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, and to all my old friends, hello, and to my new friends that I haven't met yet. Look forward to seeing you hopefully in February. But anytime you're in Manhattan or Topeka, make sure you look me up and say hello. Love to get to meet you. I was asked to cover a few topics. One was an update on the framework for growth, and then we'll get into some policy as well as some changes within the Office of Innovation. So first, we're going to talk about the framework for growth. And many of you have seen the slide before. Just a reminder, this is the overview slide. Today, we don't have enough time to go over all of the topics on this, so I'm going to focus on some of the pillars. And then hopefully in the future, we can have time to focus on some of the other areas of the framework for growth. The first one I'm going to start out with is talent. This has been really, I'd say, at the forefront of our efforts so far this year, or this past year, is working on this talent pillar, because it's what's driving so many of the decisions. And you can see the list on the screen here of some of the things that we called out. The one that really took hold, though, in 2021 was the focus on apprenticeships. There were several committees that worked on different topics around the state, and each time apprenticeships was really an outcome of their work and a focus. And so, I'm happy to report that we've made a lot of progress in the Department of Commerce with the apprenticeship program. And just as a reminder, a registered apprenticeship program has these elements in it. It is a structured on-the-job training. There's also an in-classroom or educational component. There's also a wage progression as you work through your apprenticeship. You obviously have mentorship, and then at the end, there's industry recognized credentials. So those are the elements of a registered apprenticeship program. If I were to give this talk a year ago, we had one person on the apprenticeship team in the Department of Commerce, and that was Chastity. And she did a tremendous job, has connections, and is well respected across the state. But it was a lot of work. There's a lot of progress that can be made by building out a full team. So we hired Shonda Atwater as the Director of Apprenticeship and Internships, and we will talk about internships at another time. But we really want to look at both of those programs. But right now, the focus has been on apprenticeship. Chastity remains involved. We've added Donna Thompson and Logan, as well as Jenny, into different focus areas for apprenticeships. And then we still have one for the manufacturing sector that we're going to hire. So excited about the growth to go from 1 to 5, and we're already seeing the impacts of those hires. So you ask, how many are there in Kansas? We have 1,660 apprentices in Kansas, but we also have Kansas residents who are in federal apprenticeship programs that haven't been recorded before. And so when you look at all of the Kansas residents that are involved in an apprenticeship program, it's actually 3,225. And so, and that's a number that we want to continue to see grow, but we also want to celebrate those that are involved in apprenticeships right now. If you look at a heat map of Kansas of where there are individuals in apprenticeship programs, it's across the state. And again, we'll continue to see this grow as we build out new apprenticeship programs in new areas such as technology, coding, things like that. That'll be across the state as well. The second pillar is innovation. And, I put the title on here, and I gave a talk a little bit ago, a few weeks ago, and it was really about embracing innovation. Kansas had embraced innovation for a long time, gotten away from that a little bit. And that was a major finding in the framework for growth, was that need to get back to the innovation ecosystem, really driving the Kansas economy forward. Some of the findings that have been updated in the last year, if you look at like our venture capital investment, which is a signal of our innovation ecosystem, Kansas is below our peers, and we continue to lag in this area of attracting that venture capital funding. But when you look at our peers, that's misleading, because if you look at the Midwest, we're only capturing 4% of the VC funding in the United States with all of these states. So, to compare against our peers does not get us to what we want to do with, as stated in the framework for growth, which is punching above our weight class. So we want to punch above our weight class, not only for the Midwest region, but compared to nationally. So we have a lot of work to, when it comes to deals and deal flow and funding. So what are we doing about it? We're starting to rebuild that innovation ecosystem. The first thing was reestablishing the Kansas Department of Commerce as a participant in the innovation ecosystem and become that trusted partner and also a resource partner. And then lastly, to be a voice that helps celebrate the innovation success that we do have in the state of Kansas. As many of you know, the Angel Investor Tax Credit was renewed last year. Really excited about that program continuing. Nationally, that is seen as a leading program. And with it being renewed, we also got increases in the amount of tax credits. And we also increased the amount of tax credits a company can get, as well as a single individual. The other area that was passed last year that goes into effect this year is the University Engineering Initiative Act. And the reason I bring that up is, as we've worked with the engineering schools this fall to kind of outline what the goals are for the next 10 years, innovation is part of that discussion. We also created inside Commerce the Office of Innovation, hired a director of innovation, that's Wade Wiebe, and we launched the Kansas Innovation and Technology Enterprise, which contains the Proof of Concept Fund, which I'm going to talk about, cooperates closely with the Angel Investment Tax Credits, and then also is highlighting the R&D tax credits, which is actually is part of your tax filings and goes through the Department of Revenue when you look for that information on the website. So the Proof of Concept Funds, this was to say, we've got ideas that are promising. And again, we're thinking about traded sector, technology-based enterprises that need that next little bit of capital so that we can move that product or service towards commercialization. So we're trying to fund that gap. And this is that seed funding. So this is before Angel, this is before VC. But if we don't build that pipeline at the seed level, we'll never get to that Angel and VC capital that we're seeking. So we're trying to fund that. And so we found internal funds that are helping fund the Proof of Concept program. We have two categories. One is the for-profit entities, and the other is faculty-led, so innovation that's coming out of our universities. We evaluate the applications on a quarterly basis. So far, we've had 2 quarters that we've evaluated, and we've funded 9 companies and 2 faculty projects, totaling $256,500 in grants. And you can see the website there, as well as Wade's information if you need for more information. So the next steps in the rebuilding the innovation ecosystem, strengthening our partners. Craig talked about how important the local partners are. Critically important for us is chambers and ED professionals that are on this call. but also, work better alignment with the SBDC, some of the groups like Nexus in Wichita, ECJC in Johnson County, our higher education partners around the state, Kansas Manufacturing Solutions, BioKansas, go on and on, bringing those partners together and having better alignment, better communication. We also want to improve our capital resources. The POC, proof of concept, is at that seed level, but also what can we do at the community level to improve the seed funding? And then also work with our angel groups and our VC groups, and we're seeing really good movement there in the state of Kansas. New funds are being developed at higher levels. Some focus on non-dilutive funding, so that SBIR, STTR funding, equity access to funds, being very intentional about this. And then also SSBCI, which is a new federal program. We're going to get a minimum of $56 million in the state of Kansas to deliver new programs and expand existing programs to support small business creation and growth. And then also keep our eye on what those emerging technologies and trends are and how our innovators can participate. All right. The next area of change inside the department is a focus on data analytics. This was an area that we were truly missing, and we're taking steps to correct that. Haley Peterson was hired as our lead data analyst, reports to me under the chief strategy officer. And what we're trying to do is a department-wide comprehensive look at our data needs, but then the areas that we want to focus on first, though, are the data integrity, the interagency data sharing. There's a lot of data inside state government that's not being shared, that we're not getting use of inside the Department of Commerce. Developing some general data sets that are useful across the state, that are state level data, and then also doing some project specific data research. Right now we do some of that as far as a recruitment project or an in-state expansion project, and then also moving towards greater data visualization. Lastly, policy. The governor's budget just came out this morning, so we've all had fun reading the hundreds of pages that are in that document. But we really want to focus on some of our incentive tools, both existing and new ones. And we're taking a look at where we're not competitive right now. Where are we having gaps in our tools? One of them that you will see in the budget is a focus on film industry and growing that in the state of Kansas. Also, you'll see in the budget an increase in the JCF from 3.5 million, which has been the historical level, to 8.5 in FY22, which is the year we're in now, to 31.5 million in FY23, and then a kit and cur enhancement of $2 million. And so that's just some of the what's proposed in the budget, but we're really excited about, again, building on what we did last year and adding and strengthening our tools. We're going to continue to push for innovation support, and you will see some of that also in the proposed budget. Workforce development, such as an enhancement towards the apprenticeship program, is also in the budget. And then also we have that debate about what's coming out of the general fund and versus what's going to be funded out of Spark. That's still yet to be resolved. And then I put this in there because I think it'll be a question that comes up. The Spark committee passed the Employment and Economic Development $100 million. Those guidelines will be coming out soon, and so we're hopeful this week or next week. And so if everyone can just remain a little patient on that one, we will get that information out so that you understand what you can apply for and how to apply. And there is my contact information. My cell phone number is 785-559-9640, or you can email me, trent.armbrust@ks.gov.
Thanks, Trent. Looks like you have enough to keep you busy for a while. I didn't see Office of Broadband. Is Office of Broadband under you or separate?
Office of Broadband is in the Office of Secretary. It's not underneath me, but Stanley Adams is doing a great job. You will also notice in the governor's budget enhancement to that office so that they can continue to grow and really capitalize on the federal dollars that are coming, that are coming to the state, as well as the competitive federal dollars around broadband. And this is several hundred millions of dollars that could come from the federal sources. And so we need to have the professional staff to be able to build the programs, administer the programs, and monitor those programs.
Great, thanks. I think that taking a look at data, I think is really important. And I know that she has also taken a look at data in the way of like where media sources cite Kansas as being a top priority and some of those kinds of things. Jack is wondering specifically though about MZ or Jobs EQ. Are those data sources you expect the state to start having increased access to?
We do, and that's one of the evaluations is what are the data sources we need to subscribe to so that we can have better data and more current data. And so we absolutely are working down that path, and she's working on that right now, actually.
Great, thanks. Anybody else have any questions that they want to drop in the chat box? Trent, when should people reach out to you? And on what kinds of issues or projects should they be engaging with you?
That's a great question. Really reach out anytime if you know me, but anytime. It really can be anything around innovation. Obviously, any data request. As Paul will attest, my hands are kind of in a lot of things. So if it can be a project, it can be across the board. I will get you to the right person if I can't answer the question, but it can also be, I work closely with Rachel on policy, and Rachel Willis is our legislative director in the Department of Commerce. Some of you may not have met her yet, but she's new this fall, took over for David Sofer. And so she's really busy right now with the start of the session, but she's been a great addition. So yeah, I'm kind of a jack of all trades right now. So just get a hold of me. Happy to talk, happy to visit, happy to help.
Well, thanks. And I can tell you, Trent's good about answering your questions 4 different times if you have to ask it that way before you completely understand it, and not making you feel like you're foolish. So don't hesitate to reach out to him if you have questions. He also has been there, done that as one of us, and completely understands that sometimes the data point that we're looking for might be totally innocuous, but very detailed, and that they need it yesterday. So he's not going to be surprised if you have some oddball questions that you need to track down that he can help you with. So thanks for joining us today, Trent. We appreciate it. So we're going to move next to Mitch as we kind of go from the governor's presentation of our budget last night. And we have all been working on the KEDA legislative platform. You saw that last fall as a member and are working on the legislative day. Mitch and his team has been working on that quite a bit. Want to be sure that we thank them for Salina for their work as being a sponsor, but then also Wyandotte County EDC really helped us with the design of the platform that you'll be able to see. Mary will be sending that out and it'll be available at the February event. But Mitch is going to give us an update of where things are at and have Sandy, I think, help him out a little bit. So thanks for your work, Mitch.
Well, thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. I do want to thank Greg Kendall on his efforts with the program, putting it together, going through last year's proposal, taking the new information that we want to push forward for this session. And been a lot of thanks over to folks within the department as well. And the Lieutenant Governor's been very helpful with a lot of his ideas that he's wanting to see come through, and you'll see a lot of that reflected in what we're talking about. But let's go to Sandy first. When we talked the other day, yeah, we haven't had much activity. This is only day 3. So yeah. Once you kind of get us started off, and then we'll talk about the February 3rd event and what we're looking at for 2022.
Okay, thank you. Yes, they came back to town at 2:00 on Monday, January 10th. Since this is and Mary, do you happen to have my couple slides if you want to bring those up? That we have, this is kind of the second year of a 2-year session. So what you have going on here, go ahead and go to the second slide. Um, it's a second year of a 2-year session, which means that any bills that survived last year are still available to work this year. Last night, the governor presented the state address. Today, they presented the budget. And you have some deadlines. The first turnaround is at the end of February, which is where most bills should be from one house to the other. First adjournment is April 1st, 2022. Veto session starts April 25th. And the 90th day of the session is May 10th of 2022. And so if you want to go ahead to the kind of the issues, of course, at the top of mind is redistricting. Redistricting is they're meeting right now on the Senate side. There's 2 separate committees. The House will build their map, and then the Senate will build theirs, and then they'll come together for any changes, agreements, disagreements, but they each body will pass their own map and then send it to the governor. And if you recall 10 years ago when that happened, it was thrown into the courts. Someone disputed the maps, even though it was approved by the governor. And we had a very interesting map by the end of the day with the courts getting involved with it. So I think you'll see a real effort to try to get a good map and one that the governor can support and move on. One of the highlights of the budget today was the record revenues that Kansas has. On the top list, I'm going to run down some of the things that they highlighted today in their budget presentation. Elimination of the food sales tax. Want to be careful on how you say that. I should have said of the state food sales tax. It is not of all local taxes. It is just the 6.5% sales tax from the state side. And how that occurs is they do not delete the exemption from the statute. You just leave the statute in that allows for a food sales tax, but you zero it out at that 0%. That prevents any problem with the local governments wanting to continue their sales tax on food. So if you've got a 9% sales tax in your county, 6.5% of that would go away, but you would still have the 2.5% on food sales tax. So it is not a complete elimination of the food sales tax. It is just the Kansas 6.5% portion. Then she is asking for a one-time $250 per person refund on income taxes. Oh, back to the food sales tax. The FY23 number on that is $450 million fiscal note. The next year's would be 490 to 495 because you still in 23 you still have the taxes coming in June. So the number does go up to 400 and about 90 is what they said today. The one-time tax rebate is about a $460 million fiscal note. They are closing the bank of KDOT. All of the funds that used to go from KDOT to the SGF will no longer happen in 23. Vehicle modernization charge. There was a charge, a $4 surcharge on vehicle registration renewals. That will be eliminated in this budget. And that money was supposed to go to the highway fund. It has been going to the state general fund, so they will go back to the to KDOT's budget. And then there was a very long list of about $2 billion worth of one-time events. And that included rainy day fund. Put one of those in, early debt retirement on CAPERS payments, NBAF bonds and additional bonds. Right now there's a John Redmond Reservoir, KU Med building and some others that will be paid off. Debt avoidance, pay for the docking KDHE lab, state defense building remodel, Hayes Armory. And so that instead of doing those with a debt and one-time bill payment, and this one I'm not that attuned to is, but when they started this, there was a different way of paying the K through 12 payments. And they're going to go back to the way it was previously, that it's not delayed, so that, and they will get their full amount for that. They also are putting back the money in EDIF so that it goes to Commerce instead of going to the SGF. There'll be some different things on transfers. They will, for the first time in a very long time, full transfers to the state water fund program. Like I said, continue on K-12. One of the things they mentioned was restoring university funding to pre-pandemic levels. And that would include a $45.7 million to the universities to keep them from having to raise tuition. So when they talk about a tuition freeze, it actually is funding the tuition increases that they were asking. And so those are some of the things, investing into your colleges, investments in the Kansas economy, eliminate transfers from EDIF to SGF, put $2 million in Kit Kerr, add 2.2 million for programs aimed at assisting businesses and preparing students, 20 million for moderate income housing. And I have not delved into that to see what that really means. Then of course, we just go back to some of the mental health services improvements, CanCare. They do include Medicaid expansion. I'm not confident that might happen this year, but there's 68 million funds that were noted on that. Investments in law enforcement, 5% pay increase for all state employees, and that goes executive, judicial, and legislative branch. Public safety investments, and so there was a lot of budget. There's a lot of money, so there's a lot of opportunities with the budget. With that said, you also have medical marijuana. There was an overview yesterday. Sports betting will be back on the table. Like I said, Medicaid expansions in the budget. The House Democrats had thought that it might be a good thing to put in a provision for a statewide ballot. I don't think that's getting a lot of traction. Workforce issues, that's kind of one of those big that there's not a lot of definition to yet at this point. ARP funds, as they mentioned, Department of Commerce mentioned, there's $100 million approved by the State Finance Council for economic development on Monday, and I was glad to hear that there'd be more information because I didn't have much to give you, so I appreciate that comment. Again, housing, because you hear the workforce issues of daycare and housing, of affordable housing, when you're trying to work with bringing employees into your communities. So I think that's kind of a big picture of the 2022 legislature. There will be more, things that come up as we go along, but that's kind of the major stuff. And so when you kind of have an extra amount of money in the budget, it's a good thing because you can spend more money on a lot of good programs. So anyone have any questions? Just put them in the chat. Otherwise, thank you and turn it back over to Mitch.
Sandy, thank you for that update. That's for just a couple of days activity. That's a pretty good update. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. Mary, why don't we start with the February 3rd agenda first? I want to go over that briefly with
Mitch, you need to unmute yourself. Please. There you
Does
go.
work a lot better. Does work a lot better. So Sandy, I want to thank you for that report and appreciate you giving it to us this afternoon. And we look forward to working with you through the session, and we appreciate you sharing some of your interns for a project working with the board here in a couple weeks. So
Okay.
thank you
Yes,
for that.
sure.
But Mary, let's talk about the agenda. I think you've got that to put up for the February 3rd event. I want to run through that quickly. Earlier this week, we hit 100 people being registered for the conference. So if you've not made that reservation yet, please do. It's February 3rd. We will be meeting in Topeka. I'm learning more about what's going on with the session. We were notified that the governor, Kelly, has committed to attending our session like she has the last several years. So we'll be hearing directly from her about her priorities for the session. I'm anxious to get in and learn more about this $20 million in housing that I'm sure we're all excited about. Wish that maybe it was more than 20. That'll go pretty quick. But do you have that, Mary?
Troubles trying to get it up to share it with you because I have it in a PDF format and I can't get it to share the screen. Mitch.
Okay. Well, let's just go on to the agenda for the session, or not the session, but the legislative proposals for 2022. Let's just do that. And I can talk about what we've got planned. But as I just said, the governor is coming. Lieutenant Governor Tolan will be speaking for quite a while, talking about the upcoming session and what's going on in the economic development community. So we're glad to have him again. We've got other speakers. We've got a housing representative coming to talk about what's going on in the housing market in the state and activity working there. And then we also have a representative from child care that will be coming and speaking about that. And I think everybody would be in agreement that those are two of the critical issues that the legislative branch, as well as all of us, have to deal with this coming year. So as you can see, we've got, this is the agenda that was shared earlier this year. And go ahead and move ahead, Mary. The last year, as was pointed out, Kitten Kerr was decoupled, and that transfer of credits has increased the activity level. So that was a good report to hear earlier in our afternoon presentation that that has happened and is showing increased activity across the state from those improvements. Star bonds, of course, was extended again. As also was said, our tax credit, Angel Tax Credit Program was reapproved. Rural housing was another item that was impacted last year, and hopefully we'll continue to see some additional improvements and extension, expansion, potentially of that program. Go ahead, next, please. Then we get into, of course, the other items that were approved was some of the changes to RAS, The licensure bill, that was something that was very much concerned to people moving to the state of Kansas. And hopefully that change will fast track the workings with military families and others who transfer, who have different licenses that have already been obtained in other states or through their college degrees. This will help that fast tracking of that process. And then, of course, the last thing I mentioned there is the governor's bringing tourism back to Department of Commerce. I know many of you all that work with tourism as well are very pleased about that move within the legislature. Okay, next. 2022. A lot of these items you'll see were continued from last year. As Sandy said, some of these items will be able to be carried over due to being the second year, which is a great situation for all those bills. Rural housing, I think we're going to be beating that horse to death, so to speak, with the need, and we've got to get that message across to our legislators that this is really something that is a critical item, not just for our current situation, but for our long-term future as well. We know we've got to continue to have the housing that will impact our population issues, and as well as our economic development issues within all our communities across the state. That second item that we talked about, child care tax credits, there was some progress made last year. These were the two bills from last year's session that we hopefully will have some success with and get them pushed across the finish line. Then the third one there is the University Engineering Initiative Act, which is helping to support industries and tax credits for increased engineering education within the state. There's also some other ones. Go ahead and go on to the next one. We didn't get all the items within the proposals on our slide, so I'm not going to try to force feed all that to you, but go ahead and go to the next one, Mary. Industrial revenue bonds, there was some discussion about potential expansion. We'll see if we can get anybody to bite on that one. I think that'll be a tough one to get that one pushed through the session. Other programs supporting minority, women, and service disabled businesses, amending some of the additional research and development tax credits. That was one that was talked about last session. Also from last session, developing remote workers. There were several different programs that were talked about that the Lieutenant Governor was interested in, and I think probably with some of the changes we've had with people relocating back to the state, that might be something that would be very positive. Broadband services, we know not just rural locations across the state, but there's areas within urban areas that also have a lack of or a higher cost for internet. So that's something that affects everybody, not just rural folks. There are some other areas of sales tax exemption, residential development. Again, there's some ideas about expanding the program access to other parts of the state and increasing those funds. That was something to be interested to see what that $20 million is going to be for. And then there's one that's been talked about, support for targeted investments. As a result of the framework for growth, there was some discussions about targeting for other industrial sectors Data centers was one that was talked about, but there were several different areas related, discussed in that framework for growth, maintenance, repair, overhaul, unmanned aerial systems, both in the aviation world. Logistics was another, alternate crop and value added ag, headquarters, recruitment, process digitization. These were all things that we wanted to potentially look at, new incentives that could help expand those areas. So that's just a piece of it. If you come to February 3rd, you'll be able to hear the full program and understand more of what's going on, as well as getting updates from hopefully the Commerce Committee chair and from the House and the Senate, getting to hear what the latest information is. Mary, you can bring me back. That pretty much wraps up what we've got going on. Are there any questions in the chat that we need to address right now?
I didn't see any questions, but Mitch, I did put over there the link to registration for the day, along with the link to the tentative agenda. It's kind of labeled tentative just in case some people end up changing and not being able to attend due to conference meetings and things like that. But at this point, I think the agenda is fairly set. We don't talk about it much, but there is a reception that night. Realize that there is a COVID spike. Appreciate everybody being reasonable in what they need to do. But also, one of the things that this group has talked about quite a bit is we just kind of miss each other and we miss people. And so hopefully that legislative convener in that evening, whether or not we end up with any legislators in the room, certainly appreciate it when they can attend. But I think that it'll be nice for us to be able to see each other. So would remind you to ask your legislator or remind your legislator to attend. There is also that opportunity that Mitch sponsored, purchasing some bags, Salina did, to do a small little token delivery, if you will, to the legislative offices. So Tuesday we'll actually be meeting in Topeka, a group of volunteers. It'll have the legislative platform that goes in there along with some little token gifts. And then Sandy's crew, her interns are going to be delivering them to those legislative offices between now and the event. So they'll also get a hand-delivered invitation to the event along with some little tokens. If you have some items, that's great. We'd love to put those in there. Our value of the bag needs to be less than $40, and I think we still probably have some room in there if you have some items, but we would need for you to get those items to Topeka by 11 o'clock on Tuesday. So if you want to get those to Commerce or reach out to one of us so that we can do that, that would be great. I did see that Mitch asked the question about the chances of the legislative event being canceled, and I'm going to assume that that's probably a question related to COVID. At this point, we are locked in with the convention center to do whatever we're doing. And so we're, again, just asking people, be smart. Be reasonable. Mary's going to do what she can, certainly at registration, so that perhaps there isn't necessarily as much direct interaction with her as you get there. It may be that you get there and that you find a table that has all the name tags on it, and we ask everybody to be adult-like and grab your name tag and slap it on and go into the room and be able to handle things that way. So it's just one less point of folks happening to chat. And then if there's a concern or a question, then maybe we're able to handle that off to the side. But gonna do what we can, would encourage everybody to be as safe as possible. For those of you who might not notice, I'm at Casa McCrae. Why? Because my husband tested positive over the weekend. So we're gonna do what we need to do to keep people safe. So Mitch, it looks like we are, don't have any other questions other than that one. So I wanted to turn it over to Tracy Henry so that she could do the wrap up for everybody. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, Janet. As Janet said, if you'll look down in the box, if you're not already registered for the legislative conference on February 3rd, it is at the Topeka at the Hotel and City Center, which formerly known as the Capitol Plaza Hotel. So different name, but same place that we've been in the past. And again, that registration information and tentative agenda is down in the chat box, and it's also on the KEDA website at keda.com. So take a look there if you miss it here today. But thank you to all of our speakers. We know it's hard to get Commerce all in the same place at the same time, and we had a great representation from Commerce. So we really want to thank them for their time today, as well as Mitch and Sandy. And as I said, we're 3 days into the legislative session, and that was a pretty meaty bit of information that they both already had to digest and regurgitate back to us. So thank you all for that. As Mitch had said earlier, also, the governor apparently has now confirmed that he will be able to attend that session on that day, as well as the lieutenant governor, secretaries of transportation and ag, Housing and Resource Corporation, Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund. Registration is open, so if you're not registered or you're not one of those 100 of us, go ahead and get registered as soon as possible. Our next webinar is scheduled for 3 p.m. on March the 16th. That will be Alicia Hutchings from the manager of the business recruitment from the Kansas Department of Commerce. So get registered for that. That again is, that information can be found on the KEDA website. And if there's nothing else or no other questions, I don't see any in the chat. So I think that wraps us up for the day. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
everybody.